This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for February 7th, 2026. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. DOGE with teeth. The Government Accountability Office, or GAO, is a joke. It is a member of the swamp and only makes recommendations. Thus, we got Elon Musk in the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. These people found more fraud and abuse in a month than GAO would have ever found. I can only imagine how much more they would have found if the party of the leering centers had not gotten in the way. Now President Trump has nominated an attorney for a new department. Colin McDonald's career is fantastic as he busted crooked police officers in Hawaii. As I understand, they had stolen $148,000 from their own uncle. They were busted after going to Disneyland, buying luxury cars, and Elton John tickets. McDonald, if confirmed, would be the Assistant Attorney General for fraud. We have seen what happened just in Minnesota and California. People who misappropriate or steal government funds need to be prosecuted, and this office seems fit for the job. I have enough of a problem with being robbed with every paycheck. I at least want this confiscated wealth to be used legally. Now, while not fraudulent money, the FBI went to Fulton County, Georgia, investigating voter fraud. We were told that the 2020 election was the most secure election in American history, but the 2016 election was stolen by the Russians. And if you believe either of these things,
I got some oceanfront property in Arizona. From my front porch you can see the sea.
On to Fulton County, Georgia, which was raided by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI. This is the same county in which President Trump had to deal with the persecutor.
Don't you mean prosecutor? No!
Fani Willis. Once she was removed from the case after gross misconduct, the charges were suddenly dropped. It is as if the rest of the department did not have Trump derangement syndrome. According to Fulton County itself, 315,000 ballots were not signed by poll workers. In a previous video, I calculated that this would be roughly half of the voting population. Now liberals are saying that this is the weaponization of the justice system. I disagree very strongly. Consider the weaponization without any evidence that went into investigating the imaginary Russia collusion narrative. This at least has an admission of Fulton County behind it. Evidence matters in any investigation, as do admissions. Now, speaking of fraud, multiple fraudulent cities may soon be on high alert, making the cities illegal. For years, Democrats have decided that federal immigration law does not apply to some communities. This only increased as a result of Trump derangement syndrome, and his push for border security that Obama and Clinton stood for. Senator Lindsey Graham introduced a bill to make sanctuary cities illegal. Now, as you know, the main reason that Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has to take such a heavy hand is because of sanctuary cities. These cities have illegals who are committing crimes, but choose not to report them to ICE. This means that the federal government has to do its job and the local government's job. If sanctuary cities are illegal, and there are consequences for harboring illegals, things will be much easier on ICE. The cities may even prosecute the rioters and agitators in the streets.
One can only hope.
If this were the case, Don Lemon would never have been arrested. Lemon behind bars. When prosecutors were first going to charge Don Lemon with disrupting a church service, some people were saying that he would be charged under the KKK Act, but others were saying that he would be charged under the FACE Act. It turned out to be the latter. The FACE Act does two things. One, it forbids people from going into abortion mills if said abortion mill forbids them. Two, it forbids people from going into houses of worship if said house of worship forbids them. To my knowledge, there is no exception carved out for journalists. Even so, Lemon's own live stream has him talking about joining this group and what they were doing. It was not spontaneous. It was planned. If Lemon can get out of this, then there is a precedent for a journalist to walk into any abortion mill and interview whomever he wants. Journalists have to follow the rule of law. Otherwise, anyone could just claim to be an independent journalist and go wherever he wanted. Don Lemon is already saying that this is about his melanin and his orientation. Sorry, Lemon, but we are not playing that game anymore. Democrats need to learn that their riots and agitations have real consequences. Lemon was arrested while he was there to document the waste of time that is the Grammys. And a few things that were said amongst these rich people, who live in gated communities, need to be pointed out. Eilish's stolen land. Billie Eilish is some sort of performer that I choose not to waste any time researching to see who he or she is. Eilish spent his or her acceptance speech repeating the talking point that no one is illegal on stolen land. At any point, this individual could give away all of his or her property to anyone, including the Indians, whom he or she thinks that it was stolen from, when in actuality, this land was sold and conquered. This is after the land was conquered from another tribe, and another tribe conquered it before them. How far back do you want to go? Large swaths of land were even claimed by overlapping tribes. Also, those present had buttons advertising that they wanted to sleep with ICE agents. Something tells me that these agents are not interested. What was that? Oh, good point. It is just an explicative to get rid of law enforcement. This was at an event with private security and where only certain people were allowed in. ICE is not judging people based on the color of their skin. They are not liberals. They are arresting people with criminal records who were protected from prosecution. These so-called celebrities can bash ICE agents from a distance. They can encourage people to block off investigations and kick out taillights, and not have to deal with the consequences themselves. Nicki Minaj has even claimed that these people are guilty of massive SRAs, or satanic ritual abuse of children. Now, something that all of the attendees have in common, aside from the obvious, is that most of them were probably clients of a certain man. So let us talk about him. Epstein email dump. After a lot of pressure, a massive number of Epstein emails have finally been released. Before I discuss who is mentioned in the emails, there was one noticeably absent person, Donald Trump. He has been vindicated as many times as he has been accused. One person who was listed in the emails was Elon Musk. However, I would like to note that these emails were written before his crimes were widely known. This is similar to how President Trump cut ties with Epstein as soon as his crimes were made public. Other names include Bill Gates, who talked about a pandemic simulation, Bill Clinton, whom we know to have been on the Lolita Express multiple times. Epstein was even invited to a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton as recently as 2015. Martha Stewart tried to get his phone number. Kathy Rumler, a top lawyer at Goldman Sachs, tried to use his influence, technically before his convictions, but advised him on how to respond to the press coverage of his crimes. Even Dr. Peter Attia, a CBS contributor, was in the emails. Conclude from that what you will about the state of the mainstream news. Multiple royal individuals from countries that I do not care about were also there. Again, the one person who was said to be his biggest client was nowhere to be found. After all, if Donald Trump was in the emails, the Democrats would not have wasted time at Mar-a-Lago. They would have released these files. However, one thing that I know for sure is that absolutely none of these people will be arrested. They just have to deal with the court of public opinion. Meanwhile, let us go to another legal issue: elections. To save our elections. The Democrats really are a batch all to themselves. They are willing to cut off food stamps and furlough federal workers, just so that there is no election integrity. The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE Act, is the crux of this argument. Democrats only won in Georgia after gross malfeasance. Not to mention Arizona, where the person in charge of certifying the election was running her own campaign, after she cowered away from the public and debate. All that the SAVE Act requires is a federal ID card. Senator Chuck Schumer has once again called this Jim Crow-era targeting. He forgets that it was the Democrats who created those laws, but I digress. Moving on, every American adult has an ID on them that can be used. The same ID that is used to open a bank account, get on a plane, or collect welfare is acceptable. ICE is using Medicaid data to find illegals. We also know that in some local elections, it is technically legal for illegals to vote. We also know which party illegals will be voting for. The same party that promised them immunity from crimes and lots of free stuff. The SAVE Act would prevent this fraud from happening. Snopes will probably call all of what I just said misleading. As such, let us talk about something that Snopes does not want to admit is happening: your car's kill switch. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Biden administration's 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act Section 24220 authorizes a kill switch be installed in all cars to detect impaired drivers. This is detected entirely by a computer. Sadly, computers make mistakes. Even most artificial intelligence programs admit that they can make mistakes. I would like to add that it is not unfounded that this switch could be activated remotely. Any system connected to another can be hacked. With modern cars connected to GPS and other wireless devices, the system can be hacked and shut down remotely if your social credit score is too low.
Never a matter of if, only when.
Snopes is pointing out that this was not passed recently, because it was already passed under the Biden administration. However, there is a push by Republicans to revoke this. It is scary how often good has to play catch-up against evil. If they pull your car over, it will be done without a warrant, and no charges will be filed. Speaking of which, Director Kash Patel of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or FBI, will not be filing charges against the creators of the Leering Centers. No charges filed. I have mentioned a few times in this video that no charges will be filed. I have also mentioned that this corrupt Department of Justice is going nowhere. Whether this is because of the deep state.
So how do you define it?
Well, the way I would define the deep state is an increased willingness by more and more government civil servants to pursue political objectives rather than stand up for the values of the institution they're a part of. They are not neutral. They're not politically neutral.
Working against President Trump being targeted by shadowy organizations, or that Attorney General Pam Bondi and her staff are grossly incompetent remains to be seen. Either way, an insider who unknowingly spoke to O'Keefe Media Group exposed that Director Patel will not be pressing charges against any of the fraud of the Leering Centers. There is documented evidence of all of the malfeasance, and plenty of arrests have already been made. My mom tells me to never attribute to malice that which is best attributed to ignorance, but the pattern does not indicate ignorance, and defending Patel or Bondi at this point is a travesty of justice. Sadly, because they work in the Department of Justice, which needs more independence than other agencies, it will be slightly harder to fire them without terrible optics. However, President Trump has shown that he does not care about looking bad, as long as the American people get what they need.
Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.